Faites l'appel, s'il vous plaît, monsieur le greffier.
Monsieur le Sénateur Gorst.
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Farnham. Madame la Sénateur Ferguson.
Présente.
Monsieur le Sénateur Lafondre. Monsieur le Sénateur Lafondre. Madame la Sénateur Valois.
Present.
Madame la Sénateur Moore.
Present.
Monsieur le Sénateur Pallet.
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Hélier.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Clément. Madame la Connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Present.
Madame la Connétable de Saint-Sever. Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Brelade.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Gruville.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Sainte-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Madame la Connétable de Saint-Martin.
Present.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Jean. Madame le Deputy Martin.
Present.
Monsieur le Deputy Southern.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy de Gruville.
Present.
Monsieur le Deputy Lewis.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Tadier. Monsieur le Deputy Higgins. Monsieur le Deputy Masson. Madame le Deputy
Yes,
Fidel.
I can, yes.
Present.
Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Martin.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Dublé.
Present.
Monsieur le Deputy Labby.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Wickenden. Monsieur le Deputy de Sainte-Marie. Monsieur le Deputy Truscott.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Young.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Ash.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Morel.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Guida.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Legra.
Present.
Monsieur le Deputy Aye.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Pershard. Monsieur le Deputy Ward.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Alves.
Present.
Monsieur le Deputy Pamplin.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Gardner.
Present.
Monsieur le doyen.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et la puissance de la terre, pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil des prudences, d'unir les cœurs et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, de la conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit que toute l'heure de l'opération est en accompagnée de la bénédiction. Réussisse au bien-être au soulagement du peuple, qu'il te plu de commettre à leur soin. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par le mérite de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné à t'invoquer en descend. Notre Père, qui est aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonne nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous envoie point en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car à toi la reine, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Monsieur le Sénateur Farnham.
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Lafondre.
Excusez.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Clément.
Excusez.
Madame la Connétable de Saint-Sever.
Mallard, sir.
Faut jurer que Madame la Connétable de Saint-Sever est tellement disposée qu'elle ne peut pas assister aux tests sans exposer sa santé. Monsieur le député Tadier.
Excusez.
Monsieur le député Higgins.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Masson.
Excusez.
Monsieur le député Wickenden.
Excusez.
Monsieur le député de Sainte-Marie.
Présent.
Madame la députée Perchard.
Excusez.
Les états sont nombreux, Monsieur le Président.
Les États sont constitués. Very well. We resume debate upon P17, and the next matter for consideration is the adoption of Article 1 unamended. Does any member wish to speak upon Article 1? Chief Minister. Oh, Chief Minister, if you're speaking, if you are speaking, I have to ask you to stop speaking, because at the moment I have to say there's an element of amusement in the chamber, because you're sounding like something of an inaudible cartoon character, and something needs to be done about. I wonder if it's possible for you to have a different speaker, or to use headphones with a boom microphone or something of that.
Is that better?
That's much better. Thank you, Chief Minister. I'm sorry, it was really quite a strange sound.
Apologies, sir. It is something that happens on my home system, which I've forgotten about, and normally have to log in twice.
Right.
I suddenly realised, because I was puzzled, sir, why I did actually say présent previously as well. So.
Well, we've noted you now as present, and I call upon you to speak.
Okay, right, sir. Having had the humour for the morning, unfortunately it's a little bit more serious on this front, and it is with regret, sir, I shall not be supporting or voting for this article. In my view, sir, we don't have, or I don't have, the democratic mandate to do that. I do not think what is in effect, sir, the elimination of the senators by I don't think it's justified, sir, by effectively a few focus groups and other pieces of work that have been done, in reference to a poll that was done 8 years ago, that it basically generated an opinion of around 12% of the electorate and did not achieve more than 50% of those who voted. If you translate that into a yes-no referendum, which is what the United Nations, for example, says one should do, or rather one should hold, the result was no, not yes, in favour of the proposed changes. Sir, it's a short speech, it's really just noted for the record. I do note that this article only requires a simple majority to pass, whereas it is on the third reading that 25 votes will be needed, and therefore, sir, at this stage, it is unlikely I will also be that I will be voting for the third reading as well. Thank you, sir. I just wanted to make my position clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Minister. Does any other member wish to speak on Article 1? Another member wishes to speak on Article 1. Then I close the debate and call upon Deputy Alves to respond.
Thank you, sir. I think a lot has been said yesterday regarding this article and obviously the amendments. I just wanted to address the Chief Minister's comments there and say that actually we're elected to make decisions on behalf of the public, and this is what they expect of us, and it's because of our inability to be decisive which frustrates the public and disengages them even further with the election process. So, sir, without wanting to repeat anything more, I think I will leave it at that and propose the article.
Very well. I'll ask the greffier to place a vote into the link. I open the voting and ask members to vote in the normal way.
So I cannot connect at the moment. Can I?
Please, if you'd like
Hand
to,
vote.
can you type your vote into the chat?
Not let me do anything at the moment.
Are you able to type anything into the chat, Deputy?
Sorry, sir.
Something has, but I'm not sure who it's from. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't received that yet.
We're on
Yes.
the chat.
Yes. Perhaps you'd just like to indicate by voice what your vote is,
Contra, sir.
Contra. Yes.
Yeah, 42.
If members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, ask the greffier to close the voting. The Article 1 has been adopted, 29 votes pour, 13 votes contre, no abstentions in the link, and a further 2 votes contre in the chat. Very well, we now come to Article 2. Are you proposing Article 2, Deputy Alves?
Thank you, sir. Yes, Article 2 amends the States of Jersey Law 2005 to take into account the decision that we've just made in Article 1. I propose the article.
Is the article seconded?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on Article 2? Does any member wish to speak on Article 2? No member wishes to speak on Article 2. Then I ask the greffier to place a link in. I close any debate and ask the greffier to place a link in the box. I open the voting and ask members to vote in the normal way.
So can I just clarify? I voted as the link came up rather than after you said the link was open. Will my vote still count? Or do I have
Yes.
to read it?
The answer is yes. Yes, it will, because when the link comes up, effectively the vote is open. I just say that I open the voting as a matter of form to remind people to vote, really.
Right, thank you very much.
Yep.
39.
Yes. 30.
39.
Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the greffier to close the voting. That article has been adopted. 31 votes pour, 8 votes contre, no abstentions in the link, and a further 1 vote contre in the chat. Deputy Alves, do you propose Article 3?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Article 3 substitutes Article 5 of the 2005 law. The new Article 5 provides that the term of office begins with the day on which the person is elected as deputy and takes the oath of that office, and ends on the day of the next ordinary election or the deputy's earlier resignation. I propose the article. Thank you, sir.
And is that seconded?
Yes, sir.
There's an amendment lodged by Senator Gorst to this article, and I ask the greffier to read Articles 1 to 3 and 6 to 7 of that amendment.
Amendment Part 1, page 16, Article 3. In the inserted Article 5, in the words before paragraph A, for the term of office of a deputy, substitute the term of office of a deputy for a constituency. Part 2, page 16, Article 3, for the inserted Article 5B1, substitute 1, the first day on which a deputy elected for that constituency at the next ordinary election takes the oath of that office, or 3, page 16, Article 3, after inserted Article 5, insert 5A, transitional provision for the 2022 ordinary election. 1, this article applies in relation to a person who, immediately before the 2022 ordinary election, holds office as a deputy for a constituency, a pre-2022 constituency. 2, where the deputy's pre-2022 constituency comprises an area within St Helier, Article 5 has effect in relation to the deputy as if for subparagraph B1 there was substituted 1, the first day on which a deputy elected for any of the constituencies of St Helier South, St Helier Central or St Helier North at the next ordinary election takes the oath of that office. Or 3, in any other case, Article 5 has effect in relation to the deputy as if the reference in Article 5B1 to that constituency were a reference to the constituency that includes or corresponds to the deputy's pre-2022 constituency. 4, in paragraph 1, the reference to the 2022 ordinary election is a reference to the election held in accordance with Article 6.1. Part 6, page 17, Article 7, delete Article 7 and renumber the subsequent articles accordingly. 7, page 17, Article 7, at the beginning of page 4, there is inserted 8, transitional provision for the 2022 ordinary election. After Article 21 of the State Jersey Law 2005, there is inserted 21B, transitional provision for the 2022 ordinary election. For the purposes of Article 21(3)b, a 2022 departing senator is not to be treated as ceasing to be an elected member until the first day in which a deputy elected for any constituency at the 2022 ordinary election takes the oath of that office, and the reference in Article 21B to an elected member is to be 21(1)b to an elected member is to be construed accordingly. 2, in this Article A, 2022 departing senator means a person who immediately before the 2022 ordinary election 1, holds office as a senator, and 2, holds a ministerial office but is not the Chief Minister, and B, references to the 2022 ordinary election or references to the election held in accordance with Article 6.1, and renumber the subsequent articles accordingly.
Senator Gorst.
Thank you, sir. I'm grateful to the greffier for reading out the amendment because what it unfortunately does is sound extremely confusing. I just want to be clear to members straight away. This is not yet the amendment that deals with the election day. We will come on to that. This is a technical amendment as has become apparent from the greffier's reading out of it. But it is actually very straightforward. And I am grateful to PPC for their comments because their comments clearly show that there is a gap in the current legislation, and they are proposing to endeavour to perhaps, I think the chair also indicated in a principal debate earlier today, yesterday, sorry, that they would close some of that gap, but she certainly did not indicate that they would close all of that gap. And I think that that's the reason that I brought forward this amendment, because there is a gap, and that has now been acknowledged by PPC. And the simple question for members today is whether they want to close all of that gap, or they do want to have a gap in the representation by an assembly and by government to islanders. So because a decision to end a member's term of office on the day of an election means that there will always be a period, as I've just said, no matter how long or short, and PPC seem to accept this, where Jersey doesn't have a parliament and where the public are without representation. I hope that the gap between an election and the swearing in is as short as possible. As PPC have indicated, they will bring forward legislation to shorten it. But I don't think that even if it's shortened by a few days, it is appropriate. I believe it's an unwise and undesirable development, and think it is preferable to retain the status quo. It provides for continuity and a smooth transition, and also means that we won't ever be caught out in an emergency situation. And if the pandemic has shown us anything, emergency situations can arrive in the blink of an eye. I think there is also a slightly more serious position in respect of ministers. And the chair of PPC has said that we can move from an election day to a new council of ministers being appointed within 15 days. But what that means in practice is that one single member will have responsibility for all executive functions for those 15 days. That's providing the states approve what PPC bring forward in due course. For my mind, that's inappropriate. I certainly wouldn't have wanted that when I was sitting in the position of Chief Minister. I'm sure that Senator Le Fondre, soon to be Deputy Le Fondre, sir, I'm sure that Senator Le Fondre wouldn't want that either. I don't believe that any argument has been presented by PPC that counter that. Simply that in the view of PPC, it doesn't seem to present a problem. Can it really be right that the whole of government is in the hands of one person for more than a fortnight? I don't think it can. It's simply not practical for the Chief Minister to statically mind each ministerial portfolio. Even between elections, there are issues that arise which a minister needs to be briefed about, directing officials about, correspondence needs to be dealt with, there are meetings to attend, ministerial decisions around ongoing business and orders do from time to time need to be signed, not on contentious matters, but simply on serving the island and acting in the best interests of Jersey. It is absolutely incumbent on ministers and those that wield executive power during that period to do so in an apolitical way where possible. But simply saying that we fear that some may abuse that position is not an argument to put that power into the hands of one individual. It's inappropriate and it's actually impractical. And that is why I propose this amendment. I suspect, sir, that PPC will argue, as they did in their comments and the chair did, that they are going to close the gap and therefore we don't need this amendment. The argument actually, I think, sir, should be the reverse. We accept this amendment and we hope and support PPC to come forward and close the gap when it comes to States members representation to only a couple of days, I would welcome that. But we cannot have a position, I don't believe, where there is one individual holding all executive power for the space of a fortnight. We should stick with the status quo, and I make the case, sir. Thank you.
Very much. Is the amendment seconded?
Yes, sir.
Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. I just want to say that I fully support Senator Gorst in this amendment. I don't quite understand. In fact, I'm being incredibly polite. I'll put this another way. I think PPC are far overstepping the mark of their mandate at the moment. I don't recall the States Assembly ever giving PPC an instruction to bring forward these changes. And even more importantly, I don't recall PPC holding any consultation with states members to let them know about these things. Of course, I may have missed that consultation, but that in itself would suggest that if there was a consultation, I missed it, that it was not particularly well publicised and only took place once. So I think PPC need to have a strong look at themselves here. They have no mandate for this. They have not consulted properly on this. And I completely endorse, as the Senator just said, leaving all executive powers in the hands of one person, no matter what length of time, on the promise that PPC will bring forward some legislation in the future. Well, we didn't ask them to bring forward this legislation in the first place. I have to wonder what PPC are doing, and I would have expected them to have explained themselves in a series of meetings to states members, so we could have understood why they're doing this and perhaps try to bring us on board rather than just throwing this at us through the Assembly. So no, sir, I cannot support PPC in this. I think they need to really think hard about their mandate and what they are doing and why they are doing some things. And I think PPC should in fact accept this amendment and just say no if they are to change such fundamental things, such as who holds power in Jersey, no matter for how short a length of time, then they really need to get all state members on board first before lodging these propositions. So I will certainly support this amendment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. PPC opposes this amendment, and I would urge members to do the same. Senator Gorst argues that Jersey would be left without governance if PPC's proposals that all members cease to hold office on election day are adopted. PPC does not consider it to be appropriate for outgoing members to maintain their positions until the swearing in of elected or re-elected members. In the second tranche of legislative amendments due to come forward for debate before the summer recess, PPC will be bringing forward changes so that the newly elected members take their oath as soon as practicable after the election, to ensure that members leaving the Assembly do not retain powers once the electorate have chosen others to take their place. There is currently scope for the outgoing Chief Minister to remain in an oversight role during the intervening period between the election and the appointment of the new Council of Ministers, and PPC considers that this adequately addresses any concerns raised regarding the resolution of issues which may arise during this short period. To pick up on Deputy Morell's point, PPC is responsible for the oversight of the States of Jersey law and public elections law and standing order. It very much does have the remit. PPC was asked to do this as part of its response to the EOM and review of the public elections law and processes. The second tranche also contains changes to the States of Jersey law, which will reduce the time period between the election of the Chief Minister and the appointment of the Council of Ministers after the election, which will also address the concerns raised by Senator Gorst about political oversight and the burden on the interim Chief Minister. We do not see how it can be democratic for someone who is not re-elected, either because they retire from the state or lose their seat, to retain their ministerial post and ministerial powers until a new assembly is constituted, upon the new members taking their oath of office. Furthermore, how can it be deemed appropriate for those same unelected people to remain in place until a new council is appointed? I urge members to reject this amendment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Deputy Young.
Thank you, sir. Obviously this is a very, very complicated piece of legislation, but a very important one. I certainly came into the Assembly today with the mindset that I would support PPC throughout. But having listened to Senator Gorst and had the experience of having to do the unbelievable complexity, volume of paperwork that we seem to have saddled ourselves with the states, I really think Senator Gorst has raised an important matter here about practicality. Simple as that. Now, members know my position that I don't plan to, I do plan to retire from the states. And frankly, I don't want to carry any responsibility any more than's necessary. And I want to see these ridiculous delays that we had last time between the elections and the swearing in done away with and down to almost the next day, as far as I'm concerned. But we don't have, we promised that, but we don't have it in this law. Don't quite understand why it's not there. And so what we've got here is an arrangement that I think says, well, OK, let's just span the gap until we get that. Because please, I mean, for example, the notion that a chief minister could sign every bit of paper and make a sensible judgment about which is controversial, which is just business as usual, which is just allowing the system to keep going and not on every single matter, I think it's just illusory. I don't think it's safe either, frankly, because the chief minister, you know, who knows what's going to happen with that. So I think at the moment, I'm waiting to hear some arguments to persuade me that Senator Gorst is wrong. Of course, we want it democratic as possible. But, you know, creating a situation where we've got a government, I mean, I just ask members, not a day goes past without meetings, paperwork, signing things off, and it's 99% routine. And that's the situation we've created, I'm afraid. Thank you, sir. I'll listen to the arguments before I decide which way to vote, but I think I want to hear some good ones as to why, you know, why Senator arguments about sheer practicality are not valid.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief Minister.
Yes, sir. The Deputy Young and Deputy Gorst will be delighted, and if not amazed, sir, that I agree 110% with all their comments, sir. I think the definition of not safe is an understatement, sir. And although the attraction of a benign dictatorship for 3 weeks and the ability to basically deal with every planning decision for the sake of argument, sir, I'm being slightly facetious, any appeals, any applications, any health, social security, education issues, let alone everything else, including home affairs and the police, is scary, I think is the technical description. And the practicalities of this really need to be thought through. I've unfortunately, sir, as members know, I have got an acting role as a non-minister at present, sir, and even then there are queries that come in almost daily, sir, that we have to deal with. And so the sheer logistics, frankly, I think render this unworkable. Sorry, sir, render the proposals by PPC unworkable. I think so. I do urge the chair of PPC to please come and talk to some of us early on these proposals. I know we did have a discussion with PPC, but we've not gone into any detail on what's been proposed in the second round. And certainly the first iteration we saw raised concerns also, sir, from a democratic perspective and the ability of potentially non-executive members to essentially overrule previous states' decisions just because they didn't agree with them, which would potentially be the alternative. So, sir, the Centre Gorse is basically proposing the status quo. From memory, sir, having looked at it a few weeks ago, the technicalities on this include the fact that even if a minister had been re-elected, they would no longer be a minister in that period of time after the election day, and it would quite literally everything would fall onto the chief minister. I don't think that is a healthy position, sir. And although the status quo has its problems, sir, what is being proposed is far worse. I do agree with Centre Gorse that it is far better to maintain the status quo, and let's see what the proposals are that come from PPC and assess if they are workable. On that basis, I do urge members to support the proposals from Centre Gorse in this instance, and on that basis, I will certainly be supporting this amendment, sir. Thank you.
Very much, Chief Minister. Deputy Lewis.
Thank you, sir. I will be supporting this amendment, sir. From my own point of view as Minister for Infrastructure, the workload is huge, upwards of 80 emails a day, much paperwork to be signed off, not all crucial stuff, but it would be completely unrealistic to put this onto the Chief Minister for 15 days on his own. And if other ministers have a similar workload to mine, which I think they do, then I say it's completely unrealistic. So I will be supporting this amendment, sir. Thank you.
Very much, Deputy. Conatable St Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. Just to also add my support to this amendment, it's clearly unreasonable to expect one person to shoulder the burden of all the decisions that would need to be made during the time between the election and the date of the swearing in of the new members and indeed the new ministers. But so at this stage, I would also like to invite the chairman of PPC to have early discussions with the Comité de Connétable regarding the second tranche of the proposed amendments that they intend to bring forward, with particular reference to the public elections law, which clearly impacts very much on the administrative side of the parish works. So I was intending to speak to that at a later part of the debate, but it seems timely to do so now. So it's just an invitation to the chair of PPC to contact the committee earlier rather than later when they're looking at the changes to the public elections law. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Conatable. Deputy St Juan.
Sir, I believe it's wholly impractical for the Chief Minister to exercise the responsibilities across all ministerial portfolios, even on a standing basis for a fortnight or so. I just cannot imagine that being a realistic scenario. And I'm thinking of one instance which occurs in the health portfolio, that under the mental health law, the health minister has to give authority for specialist treatment to be given to patients outside of the island. And I believe the children's minister may have similar duties under his or her remit. And when that sort of application comes forward, it's not regular, and it may not happen in between an election and swearing in, but it just might. And you know, lengthy, well-considered reports come in. There's a lot of detail to absorb, and it's a really difficult decision to make. You're sending somebody off island in a distressed state, away from all their local family and connections, and their arguments for and against. And you know, for the people who have prepared those reports for the minister to consider, it would be a discourtesy, I think, just to treat that in a rapid way and sign it off without a great deal of thought. And we don't do that, of course. But I do fear that a chief minister with 12 piles of all sorts of other ministerial matters on his desk would just not have the capacity to deal with the sort of things that are required like that, and couldn't devote the time to that sort of consideration. That's one instance that is perhaps at one extreme end, and there will be a lot of routine matters which it wouldn't matter perhaps if they were not dealt with by a fortnight, but there are risks in this, and risks that would mean that we are not governed well, because it all falls on one person who is put under ridiculous pressure to carry out work which is shared between the ministerial portfolios we have. So I would support this amendment as being the most practical, realistic, and for the sake of good governance. Thank you, sir.
Does any other member wish to? Senator Valois.
Yes, thank you, sir. I'm going to speak very briefly, but I'm actually not particularly happy with either suggestion, and I'm going to explain just briefly why. I think the most important determination that the Assembly could make around what happens during the PERDA next year and the incoming of the new Assembly is the materiality of the types of decisions that are made with regards to what happens during that period and the types of decisions that are made. And the reason why I state that, sir, is because one particular decision that has had a material effect, particularly on this Assembly, was a decision made by the chair of SEB on the target operating model on the 8th of May, whilst everyone else was going through election. I believe this has materially affected the working of not just government, but actually the Assembly as well. And I think personally, the government need to be considering and planning very carefully now for PERDA next year and what those decisions may look like. I recognise the role of a minister and the types of decisions that have to be made are far-reaching and very wide. But I think in order to be very transparent and very clear about what those decisions may or may not look like, I think it would be appropriate for us to understand that sooner rather than later. Thank you, sir.
Right, Senator Deputy Labby.
Thank you very much, sir. If I could just say to the Deputy Morrell that part of this part of what PPC are bringing forward is a response to P88, which we debated very soon after the 2018 election, when tempers were running high because of government activity during the election, and I recall the same in the 2014 election. And so members wanted to put a stop to this and voted unanimously with Deputy Masson asking PPC to come back with plans for a proroguing. Okay, if I just go through the terms very quickly, PERDA is not a term we should use. It has unfortunate connotations. In some cultures, a PERDA is a curtain which divides men and women. So it's a Westminster term which doesn't really work with our system. Proroguing is same. It's a Westminster term, and we don't have the same sort of thing at all. So we were looking at a system for Jersey, which puts the Parliament in a state of dormancy, if you like, during the elections until the next government takes over. And our suggestion, I think, was to say that the states were en repose, or, I mean, dormant is another word, but we thought en repose might work for our purposes. And it's to change the culture. Historically, of course, since 1948, the states hasn't dissolved, because you had the rolling elections of the senators, so there were always office holders in office, and 2 elections, of course, for deputies and senators, and of course the constables were elected whenever their terms of office ended. With the general election, all of that changed, but plans were not put in place to have a period of dormancy. And so Deputy Massol got a lot of support, unanimous support, asking PPC to come back with plans for a Jersey dormancy of its parliament and dissolving its parliament. I think what we did go to the Council of Ministers with this. I know that the Chief Minister wanted more discussion. The law officers were insistent that we put this in place now as part of this tranche, which was not our plans. That's okay, we can deal with that. And I have to say that Senator Gorst's argument and those of the ministers is reasonable. But I just wanted to explain the perspective that we are trying to change the culture to demonstrate to the public that one parliament has finished and there's an election and then a new parliament takes over, and also not to disgruntle members with ministers announcing new policy initiatives during the election, or indeed, as has happened, during the period after the election and before the next one. Now, I mean, I remember myself, and with this absolutely, this is not meant as in any form a criticism of the Deputy of St Martin when he was planning minister, but I think because he might have thought that this was going to be uncontentious, but he released the terms of reference for the next hospital inquiry day after the election. He was desperate to do it. He was up against time, and but it was me who thought, no, these are wrong, and I'm going to have to bring something. As I say, that's just one example of something that happened during that period, which probably shouldn't do. It's not a criticism of the Deputy of St Martin. He wasn't to know that I was going to take such offence to those terms of reference and seek to get them changed, which is what I did. And that's a very, very mild example, but it's just one of mine from my personal experience. So initially, we were very gung-ho about this because the States Assembly seemed to be very strong and wanting us to take drastic action. And we went down saying, look, perhaps ministers shouldn't be able to sign off from the moment the election happens. And that was watered down after comments from the Council of Ministers, and then this period was identified for the change. And what we've done is to say beef up the code of conduct for ministers, that during an election it's inappropriate and they should not, and it goes against the code if they are announcing new policy initiatives during an election. They really must only concentrate on the mundane and routine, or absolute emergencies, and we have seen how quickly the states can respond to emergencies. But all of that said, I wouldn't. I think we've learned a lot in this debate already. I do take the points of Senator Gorst and the ministers. I don't think PPC. I haven't consulted the chairman, but I wouldn't be upset if we accepted this amendment and went back and said, look, let's perhaps the beefing up of the code of conduct will suffice for that period. But I just want to explain the rationale and say to members that we were trying our best to respond to the very clear message that was given to us with P88 way back after the elections in 2018. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Deputy Sutherland.
Thank you, sir. And whilst I started this debate with the wish to support PPC throughout all of its decisions, I fear we've come to a position where PPC has not proven its position and code itself to accommodate the wishes that they saw and we saw in terms of the ability of ministers to act. It seems to me that what we've got is the movers of this amendment are challenging PPC to prove their case, and what we've got is a Scottish case of not proven. I think I haven't heard an argument from either of the speakers on behalf of PPC that says, yeah, we've got it nailed, don't worry about it. It's either, no, we'll come back to you with some fresh moves later, but for the moment, we've got a bit of a fudge where we hope that people will behave properly. And
expecting people to behave properly, especially politicians. I think it's a difficult ask. I don't think we should be put in that position. I'm tempted to support the amendment.
Very much, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on the amendment? Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. Like Deputy Southern and a few others who've spoken, I was intending to support PPC throughout. On this one, I can see the arguments on both sides. And the point I would like to make is I don't think it's appropriate, for example, for planning ministers to be approving planning applications or deciding whether or not enforcement actions should be taken or not taken. And there's probably examples across the piece, basically, that there are certain actions that are appropriate. And as Deputy Young mentioned, I think it was, there's a lot of mundane type things that can be dealt with, but anything that could have long lasting or implications, or for example, granting a planning permission, which if then the minister who came in wanted to revoke it, didn't think it was the right decision, those type decisions shouldn't be made because they leave the states open to lawsuits and actions. So there is an argument here for the PPC case, but equally, I accept that it is, again, putting too much weight on the Chief Minister, and I can accept that. And what I would suggest is that PPC accept the amendment in this particular case, but come back very, very quickly. And if they can modify the second tranche, and I think we have to give priority to legislative law drafting and to make sure we can get all these changes through the Privy Council. And there are some others that aren't covered in, I think, this first and second tranche. We need to ensure that we give sufficient priority to law drafting and to getting it through to the Privy Council in time for the next election. So this particular matter can be dealt with, I think, by PPC very, very quickly to address the concerns that have been made. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator Messick.
Thank you, sir. And I think what Deputy Higgins has suggested there may well be a sensible way forward on this, but I wanted to speak to make the point that there is simply no perfect solution to this. It isn't right that people continue to wield any sort of executive power after their term of office has expired, and it's also not a great position to be in where urgent action could need to be taken in that awkward period between an election being called and new members being sworn in. It should be the case that we ought to have really decent PERDA rules in place so that government departments are in essentially caretaker mode and are not bringing items to ministers to approve or otherwise that might be considered democratically problematic. That is a normal situation in many other jurisdictions. I know the UK is not a great example to copy, but it's actually the case in their system that MPs lose their office when the election is called, not even on election day itself, like our like PPC is suggesting for us. So I will continue to support PPC on this. I don't think it's right that members hold any sort of executive authority after an election has expired, but it's clear that either supporting this or not supporting this is not a perfect solution to it, and it's something that is going to have to be thought about in future and come back to the Assembly so that we get the best democratic outcome. And what Senator Gorst is suggesting is far from perfect, although many have said PPC's is far from perfect as well, and that's probably a fair perspective.
Very much. Senators, any other member wish to speak on the amendment?
Can I just jump in there, sir, and just say that?
Well, no. I'm afraid, Deputy Alves, you've already spoken.
Well, it was just to say that.
No, I'm sorry. There is no. If you're, I suppose the point has been made. If you were to be accepting the amendment, that might be a point, but in other respects, it would not be possible to have a second speech.
That's what I wanted to say, sir. That on listening to members, that PPC is willing to accept the amendment and come back to the Assembly and consult with the Assembly as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. That was a perfectly proper intervention. I'm sorry that I cut you a little short without finding out exactly what it was about. The next listed to speak is Senator Moore. It's still a matter for the Assembly as to whether the amendment is voted on. The fact that PPC now accept it does not mean that members don't vote. So, Senator Moore.
Thank you, sir, and I'm grateful to the chair of PPC for that comment and direction, which is really helpful. Like many speakers, sir, I find this an uncomfortable discussion with neither option being an ideal scenario. And when I thought Senator Mezek rise to speak, I thought he might be thinking what I had been thinking, which was as members and as islanders, actually, it is perhaps to us to try to offer an alternative solution that hastens the move from one government to another during an election period. As Deputy Labby rightly pointed out, perhaps some greater rules need to be put into place on this matter, but also and equally, if elections are run with properly costed manifestos and clarity about the options politically that are available to islanders, then there will be a swifter process to select perhaps the next leader of the government and to show the Assembly the political intentions of islanders. It has for some time been a consideration of mine, sir, to elaborate or return to what was previously Deputy Labby's proposition with regards a poll on the position of Chief Minister. And I think, having listened to this debate, I feel even more strongly today, sir, that I will bring that proposition because perhaps if we were, now that we've seen and agreed on the demise of the Senator, there could be an island-wide opportunity for the people to express their preference as to who the next Chief Minister would be. And that, in effect, could also assist with this thorny matter, as it would reduce the time period that it takes this Assembly to select its Chief Minister and make progress towards forming a government. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Senators, any other member wish to speak on the amendment? No other member wishes to speak on the amendment? Then I close the debate and call upon Senator Gorse to respond.
So I thank everyone who's spoken. I'm particularly grateful to PPC members and the chair for agreeing to accept the amendment. I think a number of speakers rightly picked up on what is an important issue, and I know that PPC will duly consider it, and that is the strengthening of the controls on the power of any member of the executive during this period, so that it's absolutely clear. Crisis decisions, of course, can be made, but only the mundane can be undertaken. I think it was Senator Valwa that first raised that issue, and then others have picked up on it. They are absolutely correct. I do think that this amendment is the right approach from a legislative perspective, but that other piece of work is just as important, if not more important. Therefore, sir, I maintain the amendment. I'm grateful to PPC and I call for the appel. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Senator. I ask the greffier to place a voting link into the chat. The vote is on parts 1, 2 and 3 and 6 and 7 of the amendment. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The amendment has been adopted. 41 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstentions within the chat, within the link, and 2 votes additional pour in the chat. We now then, having dealt with the amendment, return to any debate on Article 3 as amended. Does any member wish to speak on Article 3 as amended? No member wishes to speak on Article 3 as amended. Then the debate on that article is closed, and I ask the greffier to put a voting link into the chat in the normal way. Open the voting and ask members to vote. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Ask the greffier to close the voting. The article has been adopted as amended. 41 votes pour, 1 vote contre, no abstentions in the link, and 1 further vote pour in the chat.
We have to have the 1, please, sir.
Please, sir.
The 1, yes.
The member who voted contra was the Constable of St Lawrence.
Very well. Do you now propose Article 4, Deputy Alves?
Yes, please, sir. So Article 4 substitutes Article 6 of the 2005 law. The new Article 6 provides that the next ordinary election for deputies will take place on the 22nd of June 2022, and that subsequent ordinary elections will take place every 4 years. The new Article 6(3) provides that the states may by act appoint the day in an election year on which the election is to be held. I propose the article.
Is the article seconded?
Yes, sir.
There's an amendment to the article proposed by Senator Gorst, parts 4, 5, 8 and 9 of the amendment, as well as Articles 6 and 9, I think, and I ask the greffier to read those parts of the amendment.
Part 4 of the amendment, page 16, Article 4, and the inserted Article 6(1) for 22nd June 2022, substitute 18th of May 2022. 5, page 16, Article 6, in the inserted Article 2(1) for 22nd June 2022, substitutes 18th May 2022. Part 8, page 17, Article 9(2) and Article 9(2) for 22nd June 2022, substitutes 18th of May 2022. And 9, page 17, Article 9(3) and Article 9(3) for 22nd December 2021, substitute 18th November 2021.
Very well. Senator Gorst.
Thank you, sir. Of course, it's a well-known adage that one should never go to court on a matter or a point of principle. Of course, that is not and shouldn't be an adage for coming to a parliamentary legislative assembly. If one feels strongly about a matter of principle, I think it is appropriate to have that debate and have it voted upon. And I'm got to say, so I'm grateful to the chair of PPC in her comments. I'm not sure whether it was on the principles yesterday or whether it was on the debate of the First Amendment where we got slightly, or the Second Amendment to the Second Amendment, should I say, where we got slightly sidetracked onto this particular amendment, and that was that PPC will be able to run the election and support those who run the election, whichever date should be agreed. And for me, sir, it is undemocratic for a parliament to extend its own life a year before it is due to end for simple administrative reasons. It may be, of course, sir, that we get to next year, and all of us hope that this is not the case, and all of the work that the entire Assembly is doing is trying to ensure this is not the case. It may be that the pandemic does flare up again and the election day needs to be moved, as we've seen in Guernsey, and I think in the Isle of Man are considering it, and other places around the globe have done so, because that's an emergency. But what is being proposed here by PPC, and unfortunately it's got wide support, sir, is that for administrative reasons, and the main reasons that I've heard, sir, is that some members would like to sit on the stage on Liberation Day. I don't pass any comment on that, sir. Others felt uncomfortable on the parade on Liberation Day and felt that it gave an unfair advantage to those who were standing in the election. Others want to be able to do more work and therefore have an extra month to be able to complete the work that they are trying to do and deliver. They, sir, are not, in my mind, sufficient grounds to extend the term of a parliament. I know that PPC have argued in their comments that this is not the case, but I believe that the electorate, when they voted for this assembly back in 2018, in May 2018, would expect there to be an election in May 2021. And not for us to simply say, well, we think it's a bit inconvenient for these administrative reasons and therefore we're going to extend our own parliamentary life. It doesn't follow best practice. And I, sir, don't agree with it. I know reference has been made to Deputy Masson's P88, where propositions can't be lodged rightly for a number of weeks prior to nomination meeting, and the states can't sit for a week prior to a nomination meeting. That's absolutely right. The states were right to agree that, but we've known that since some point in 2018. And so that's not an argument for us now to extend the life of this assembly. And if we revert back to the issue of states members' participation in our national day, surely, sir, the provisions that we put in place where those members sitting or standing in the election, were moved off the platform and took a lower profile part in those events, is far better than every states member being able to use Liberation Day as the start of their election campaign. So for me, sir, it is a matter of principle. There is no good overriding reason why we should extend our term of office in this manner. Of course, I leave it to scrutiny to talk about all of the issues that it then presents around their work. And I know that most ministers are supporting a June election day. But the difficulty it presents for an incoming government, where the government is only formed before the summer recess, it was trying enough last time round when the election day was in May. I've not heard any credible argument for why we should do what is being proposed by PPC, and therefore, sir, I maintain this amendment too. Thank you.
Very much, Senator. Is the amendment seconded?
Yes,
Does anyone wish to speak on the amendment? Deputy Alves, I think I note that you wish to speak, or was that on a different matter?
Yes, please, sir.
Yes, Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. Senator Gorst considers it to be a dangerous precedent and not good for democracy for a parliament to decide 1 year before an election to extend its own term of office for 1 month for what appears to be minor administrative reasons. Although the meeting dates for 2022 have yet to be fixed and are subject to the outcome of the review of the 3-weekly cycle trial, PPC envisions that the last full meeting of the States Assembly will be held before Liberation Day during the week commencing the 25th of April 2022, and the nominations process will commence from the 10th of May. The Assembly will therefore adjourn during the week commencing the 25th of April and not meet again until after the elections in late June. We do not believe that this extends the period of office beyond that which the public believed it was voting for in 2018. The term of office was for 4 years until the next election, and the current States of Jersey law, Article 6.3, provides for the Assembly to alter, by regulations, the periods within which ordinary elections must be held, both as to their duration and the day they begin. It is therefore a matter for this Assembly whether the short extension proposed is acceptable. Senator Gorst asserts that under PPC proposals, Liberation Day would risk becoming the campaign launch for all members seeking re-election in June. PPC sees this as quite the reverse. Liberation would signal the end of the tenure for members and allow a respectable gap between such a public event and the nomination announcements, rather than being central to the election period as at last. My committee does not agree with one of the sentiments expressed by Senator Gorst, namely that the dates of future elections should be proposed as early as possible. In the next tranche of legislation, that my committee does agree with one of the sentiments expressed by Senator Gorst, namely that the dates of future elections should be proposed as early as possible. In the next tranche of legislation, that is exactly what is being proposed. I'd also just like to raise a couple of things that I mentioned previously in other debates, that this isn't just about how we come across on Liberation Day, on our national day as well. It's also about voter accessibility. And as I mentioned before, the younger demographic were disenfranchised by having the election date in May, which happened to coincide with their GCSEs and A-levels. But it's not just the younger people who are at school here, but also the students who are in the UK who are more likely to be back on the island for the June date. So I urge members to reject this amendment. However, if members do decide to accept this amendment, we are completely prepared to go with the will of the Assembly and respect that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputies. Any other member wish to speak on the amendment? Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. And I speak because I think there's a really important point which perhaps is a little underestimated here. Perhaps it isn't, I don't know, we'll see what the members think. And this is an interesting part of this debate because so far we've been through such wide-ranging change, and I really hope that we can see this over the line. But in this small part of this, I think there's a very important point to be made. First of all, when we were elected in May, I think 2018, I think it was, there was such a delay before we were sworn in, and that time seemed to be a very strange time indeed. And I'm looking at this change, and I think the key to this is being sworn in and taking up our roles very quickly after the election. And the time span of 1 extra month would really not be as significant as perhaps as it appears on paper, because we were elected in May and really didn't get on with anything until June anyway, which troubled me enormously. The other really important element here is that in Jersey we have some remarkably good parts to our democracy. One is that we can bring propositions to the Assembly, and I've said that on many, many occasions, and I think it's really important. The other one is that our voting age is 16. 16-year-olds can vote in Jersey, and we must engage young people. We must make every single effort we can to engage young people in our democracy, in voting, in knowing about our processes, and valuing the elections as they arise. There is no point us playing lip service to allowing 16-year-olds to vote and then not taking actions that will show every encouragement possible to get them to vote. And I think we could be using this change to emphasise to young people that the Assembly has decided that we will move the election till June 22, and one of the significant reasons for that was to encourage you as a young person to engage in politics and to vote. That, I think, is a really important and key part to this, because people always say that young people are the future of the island, etc., etc. But then we must take action to encourage that. So that, I think, is a very important point that must be considered in this debate. And to me, it's not the most important part of these articles, is not the most important part of these regulations, but it is a key point that I hope people can consider in that way. I think the law is there. In terms of points of principle, I understand where Senator Gorst it seems to be coming from, but I think that the principle is in law that this is that there is an ability to do this. So I don't see that as a major problem. So all of us want to do the best we possibly can. I think the separation from Liberation Day is important because it gives a clearer playing field for those who want to stand for election for the first time. And we do need to encourage that competition for places in this Assembly, because it will improve and increase the participation of not just voters but the entire island. So with those points made, sir, I hope people will consider this change and support and reject the amendment and support the main article in the long term. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy Senator Moore.
Thank you, sir. And as we rehearsed yesterday during the debate on the principles, there is an issue of discomfort for scrutiny in relation to the impact that this may have on the business of both the executive and the non-executive as a new government is installed following an election. We were grateful for the apologies received from PPC. And we know that Deputy Lehegara is the Scrutiny Liaison Committee's link person to PPC, and of course she has taken part in the discussions around that table, but we did feel that this is an important point upon which we should challenge, and I share Senator Gorst's concerns about the feeling of discomfort that it causes that we might be trying to extend the period of office for this Assembly. Other speakers are absolutely correct, though, that we must focus on shortening that time period of transition, and Liberation Day being one of those points. It is really natural that members will want to celebrate Liberation Day next year. It is fundamentally important, and we will be celebrating 3 years in one, and particularly reflecting back on what should have been our celebrations for the 75th last year, which of course is going to be delayed until next year now. That being said, there are many ways that we as islanders and as states members will be able to celebrate and acknowledge Liberation Day without perhaps taking a formal part in those celebrations in Liberation Square, and perhaps even not in the parade if we are campaigning. And I think that's a really important question that members have to ask themselves, and we can address in very simple fashion to change the date of an election for that reason. It is simply uncomfortable. I think, as Deputy Alves said, the matter of children and young people being able to vote, that is a thornier one, and I absolutely accept the rationale of PPC in that regard. It is, I think, the only matter that causes me to reflect upon this amendment. Otherwise, I would be giving it my wholehearted and full support without question. Once again, though, there are always workarounds and ways that we can deal with that. And personally, I would have preferred PPC to have brought the elections forward rather than putting them back. And I think that is the fundamental point that Senator Gorst is making, and I support him in his endeavours to do so. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator. Senator Mezek.
Thank you, sir. I've stood for election 4 times now. The first, the campaign was in January and February. The second time the campaign was in end of September, beginning of October. Third time was in August, and the fourth time the campaign was in April, May. And I can tell you that by a long shot, the best of those campaigns was definitely the one in the April and May, because the weather was better. You had a much better opportunity to get out there. The sun didn't set so early in the evenings, and when you're out canvassing, people don't like having their door knocked on when it's getting dark. It's as simple as that. So having an election at around that time of year, I think, is best. Having it set back a further month to June is something that I do support, and I feel that I can support it on democratic grounds, because I don't actually think it is enhancing the power of this assembly, because earlier on in this term of office we agreed for stricter PERDA rules that will give us a period of time where we're essentially a lame duck assembly, unable to bring things forward in that end part of the term that previous assemblies have been able to do, and which the public may well have thought we would have had the right to do at the time they elected us. So in reality, we're not really extending our term of office, really, because of those tougher PERDA rules that will be in place. I think having an election in June will be better to engage with young people who will mostly have had their exams over and done with and out the way, which is a good thing. It will be better weather, marginally compared to May, but that'll be a good thing as well, and make it easier for people to get out there and canvass and engage with voters. And it avoids that awkward clash at Liberation Day, which can round off this term for the elected members in a dignified way, which has got to be a good thing. So I think there's a good reason to have an election in June. I don't think it's as democratically problematic as some members have suggested. That being said, it's not the end of the world if we do end up going for May, because that is what we thought would be the case when we signed up to stand as states members. So I don't think we need to make too much of a big deal out of this. I would simply say to members that I think a June election will be a nicer experience, both for candidates and for voters, and make for a better election, and that's got to be a good thing.
Thank you very much, Senator. Deputy Sir Martin.
Thank you, sir. And so I'm going to support the Senator Gorst wholeheartedly on this. And that's for one main reason. That's irrespective of some good reasons that we've had for maybe pushing the election back to June. It's fundamentally wrong for a government to extend its period in office. And I think we need to get to the next election as quickly as we can. It may well be right, as I've just said, to extend to June, but if it is correct, it should be for us to say that the next government, the next state assembly will run until June, and to extend our own term in office. As we all know, we can say what we like about campaigning and whether we're in after the nomination meeting or not, but many of us will know that campaigning will have started well before that date. Liberation Day is an interesting point to discuss, but I have to say to members, some of those who say they're uncomfortable on the stage during an election year, that I feel uncomfortable on the stage every year at Liberation. I'm very happy to sit in the States Assembly on Liberation Day and to listen to the speeches from parts of the Assembly. I'm very happy to be a States member on Liberation Day, but for me, when we get to the outdoor service, I think it's for the leaders of the island to take part. I want to be a member of the community, an islander, a Jerseyman, sitting with other islanders, and I do feel somewhat uncomfortable on Liberation Day, sat on the stage, but that's not a reason for this. I think Senator Gorst has got this right, sir. I think it's fundamentally wrong to extend the election out to June, and despite some good reasons for maybe doing that, it's not for us to do it for ourselves. If there's good reasons, it's us to do it for the next States Assembly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir, and I will be brief. It was interesting to hear that Senator Gorst had found a principle, but it turns out the principle is one of largely about admin, which is no surprise at all. But here we are talking about an issue which has been decided quite some time ago by us, that we were going to go for spring-summer elections. And here we have a decision to be made. It doesn't really matter in any heavyweight way whether we go for a June election or a May election. I'm easy either way. I think on balanced arguments, especially around trying to encourage our young people to vote, I think that's absolutely critical if we're going to live in a democracy 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years on from now. If we lose the habit of voting, we won't be in a democracy. Having said that, I think I'm generally in favour of the June election. I don't think it makes a great deal of difference. The sooner we can get to vote on this, the sooner we'll know what everybody's preference is.
Very much. Deputy Young.
Thank you, sir. I've listened to the arguments carefully, and I'm going to be supporting the PPC amendment. I don't think this is a case of an abuse of principle. I think it's about recognising practicalities. We've got what the arrangement being posed per PPC is very clear cut, is that the whistle will be blown for the starting gun, or the starting gun will be fired for the election on the 10th of May, the day after Liberation Day celebrations, and that will mean the state's adjourning on the 25th of April. And I think the 10th of May, that means that nominations open. I'm very much hoping, as I spoke yesterday, that the PPC in their second tranche of administrative changes on election law set out the timescale, a common timetable for the nominations under a new system, which will, improve upon the farce of these various meetings that go on different dates for nomination. And the way that the game gets played, no, this will be much better, I'm hopeful. And that means I think that it will encourage and help new people, because we've got a new system here. We won't have senators, thankfully. Hopefully that we can confirm that decision today. We'll have one set of elections with one common nomination day procedure, one common election day. And I think, you know, there's every chance that we will see a very, very good field of new candidates. If we were going on the point of principle, because we think somehow we're playing foul by bringing it through and putting it in June, 18th of May, I think, well, that's the proposal. What that means is you're going to have to start the nominations, going to have to be Easter. I don't know, I haven't looked up the Easter time scale, but it goes slap bang in the middle of you know, the school holidays or whatever it is with exams and so on. I think it, you know, what we've got, the PPC, is a very practical way forward, and we must have decent PERDA rules. Sorry, I don't know a better phrase, but to make sure that there is no abuse of this, and so I'm going to support PPC. Thank you
very much, Deputy Martin.
Yes, thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to follow Deputy Young, because exactly what I was just doing. Easter next year is late. Easter Monday is April the 18th. We don't sit in religious holidays, Good Friday. We don't sit that week. We don't sit after. And Easter, when it falls that late, the school holidays are normally 2 weeks previous to the Easter. So I'm just putting it out there, sir, practically. Can I take members back to where we were last year? Sorry, 4 years ago, with next year, with 3 years ago this year. We sat to 9 o'clock every night right up to nomination of senators, when they had to leave at 6:30 to run down to the town hall, because we have so much important legislation, and that was without COVID. I know my work schedule has been put out. There's things I want to achieve, need to achieve under the government plan, under my ministry, and I know other ministers are the same. I think it's practical. I think we do not have a lot of weeks when we go back after the Christmas break next year. And I take the point about Liberation Day, but I'm not moving it for Liberation Day. I'm moving it so we can achieve what this government set out to do. We don't back ourselves up. We have agreed not to sit a week before nomination from memory, so we won't have that silly games that we're sitting to 9 o'clock every night. But what do we do? Practically, sir, I think June works. Please, literally, I know Deputy Young has spoken and we can work with it, but we will have to probably sit Easter week and the week after. We have to put these things out there, sir. So members need notice, people need notice. I know there's some maybe laws that we don't sit then, but you keep moving things, bringing the things forward. And I go where Senator Gall started, that if it was an emergency in a COVID situation next year, we may be able to move it. We've been through 2 massive emergencies. We're still working through COVID, sir. And as I've said, things have not kept on time. So I can work, obviously it's down to the Assembly, sir. June works better, I think, to get this legislation, to have the proper debates that we need to get, leave that behind us, and then we have a proper election. It was silly last time. We were elected, we had 2 weeks before we were sworn in, and that was not many people doing a lot. So because you didn't really know where you were. I'm going to stick with PPC. I think they've given it a lot of thought. They've come to the Council of Ministers, sir, and for practicality alone, we really, to take on board everything we've already passed about not sitting right up to nomination, we should. We legitimately, after the 2 lockdowns and everything that we've had our eye taken off the ball with, sir, we can literally go to the June the 22nd election. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much indeed, Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. I am flabbergasted. It's the only way I can say it. So here we are again, no consultation, no scrutiny, no buy-in from states members, no briefing in advance, no opportunity to ask questions in an open forum where one member's question sparks another question in another member's mind. Very different to just asking questions via email beforehand. And all of this over one of the most fundamental democratic principles, the length of your term of office. I find it fascinating. We know Reform Jersey is a party that is high in principle, particularly when it comes to matters of democracy. They tell us time and time again. Rob Ward, the Deputy Ward, one of his favourite sayings, as I've listened to him many times in the States, is it's a matter of principle. This is a matter of principle, the length of time of the term of office. And yet, and the reason I mentioned Reform Jersey, and I apologise, it's not a party matter, but PPC is led by a member of Reform Jersey. We just heard Senator Mezek speak in favour of the.
Excuse me. Do you have a point of order, Deputy Southern?
A point of order. It may well be, sir.
Well, it would need to be.
I object to another member speaking on behalf of the party or speaking about the party when they don't know what they're talking about.
I'm sorry, Deputy Southern, that isn't a point of order. And it's a matter of political observation, which may or may not be correct as far as Deputy Morell is concerned. It's not for the chair, it's a political statement. Deputy Morell, thank you.
Thank you, sir. But the reason I do say it, and I'm not trying to drag that party through the dirt, I'm not. What I'm trying to say here is that this is a matter of principle. And I've heard Senator Mezek, I've heard Deputy Southern, I've heard Deputy Alves say, throw away these principles, the length of the term of office, for the sake of some practical administrative reasons.
Again, I'm afraid I think now Deputy Ward wishes to make a point of order.
Sorry, sir, whether it's a point of order, point of clarification, where at any point in the speech did we say, or any of the members that are referred to here say, we want to throw away the points of principle, which is what we've just been semi-quoted as saying.
Again, that really isn't a point of order. It may be that what Deputy Morell is saying is falling very unwelcome on the ears of other members, but he is entitled to say that. It is not offensive remarks.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Falling within standing orders, I'm afraid. Please carry on.
Are you, sir, may I put
yes,
a query to you, sir?
If it's
Are you sure that what has just been said is not maligning the party?
I mean, it isn't. It's a matter of the deputy's political observations. It's a matter of it's perfectly legitimate. It seems to me for a member to say often one or another member wishes to pray in aid points of principle. There doesn't appear to be a point of principle being portrayed by them here. It's a legitimate political comment. It may not be welcome. It may or may not be correct, but it is not an illegitimate comment within the terms of standing orders.
May I continue, sir?
Yes, please do, Deputy Morell.
Thank you. And I actually apologise to members of Reform Jersey because I am not trying to malign them, and I'm not. I just find it fascinating that the most fundamental principle of a democracy is the length of term of office. And in this situation, the length of term of office is being bandied about as just being an administrative practicality. I believe it's a fundamental point of principle. I will move on from that part and say that the reasons we are being told are things such as Liberation Day in the middle of the election period. To be honest, it's a ridiculous self-contradictory argument, because by starting the election period on the 10th of May, as has already been mentioned, the 9th of May is now going to be used for announcing our candidacies. It'll be used for glad handing in the parishes, etc., etc. It's going to be used for electioneering. This change absolutely fundamentally makes Liberation Day a part of the election process. So it's a ridiculous argument to suggest that Liberation Day in the middle of the election period is a problem. But my biggest issue with the practical level is that this change will hobble or the incoming government, whoever they may be. And because, I refer to Deputy Ward's speech just previously, where he said we weren't sworn in until June. That's correct, we weren't. We were sworn in this office at the beginning of June. I believe it was the 4th of June. It may have been even earlier. We were sworn in on the 4th of June. We then didn't elect the Chief Minister till at least a week later. We then didn't elect the Council of Ministers until much later than that. And so it was the 20th, between I think the 20th and 25th of June, before we had the Council of Ministers. We won't be starting that process until the 22nd of June at the very, very earliest, or the 23rd of June at the very earliest. We won't have a Council of Ministers until the middle of July. And as I said yesterday, sir, we will then see officers of the government, totally understandably, well deserving of their holiday in August, but we'll also see ministers, members of new members of the Assembly all going on holiday, sir. We will have a government that is fundamentally unable to operate until September because of this change to the election date in June. It's not a practical improvement, it's a practical destruction of the first 2 or 3 months of a new government's life and a new Assembly's life. So I find it astounding that people are so willing, again, to accept a change being proposed by PPC that's had no consultation, has had no scrutiny. I'm delighted the Council of Ministers got to speak about this because none of us did. So we know PPC have discussed it, Council of Ministers have discussed it, the other 35 or so of us not had a chance to do so. And on top of that, the practical advantages that are being told to us don't exist. We're going to actually put the government, and whoever's the government, is going to be faced with arguments of come September, oh, you've not done anything yet. Well, no, because they've not had a chance, because we moved the election to later. So we actually stopped the government being able to do anything for the first 2 months of its term of office. So, and the government will be asked to explain those things, because scrutiny will be saying, well, what's the government doing? The government's just gone on holiday. Well, it's an entirely predictable reaction to this change of date. So, sir, I do ask members to think very carefully about this. Not only is it practically not an improvement, but it is in principle, and as far as principles are concerned, it is playing with the most fundamental principle of a democracy, and that is the length of our terms of office. And it is doing so on no grounds and with no practical advantage and no actual reason. It's also doing so without had any previous discussion among states members so we can come to better understand it. That was the problem with the previous discussion that we just had, and it's something that PPC must never ever do again. Bring proposals to this Assembly without giving states members the opportunity to speak in an open forum and to question the proposals openly. I'm incredibly disappointed with PPC in the way they've done this, and I hope, and maybe we can make sure, maybe we can bring a proposition to make sure that PPC can't do this in the future, but it should never happen again. And I ask ministers to adopt this amendment. I ask members to adopt this amendment because it would be wrong to change our length of term of office for all the reasons that I've said. Thank you, sir.
Much, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on this amendment? Chief Minister.
Yes, sir. I do understand the frustration of some of the speakers, including Deputy Morell, but sir, I will not be supporting this amendment. As I said in the principles yesterday, I do agree with PPC on this. And I think, interesting enough, I would just say, as an existing member in 2018, I know many members were very uncomfortable with Liberation Day and the collision with the election period. And I think in particular, sir, as has already been expressed, next year, in fact, I think I also expressed it in the principles, sir, next year is our 77th anniversary. It will be, in essence, if you like, the equivalent, if that's possible, of the 75th, i.e. trying to celebrate it properly. And I think for all members doing it together, not being separated between those who are going to be potentially campaigning and those, who were campaigning and those who were standing down, and all those type of things, I think is wrong. I think it'd be much better, sir, if we are able to deal that united, dealing with Jersey's special day, our island day, before worrying about without being in the middle of an election period, which is what happened in 2018. I think, interesting enough, sir, I was struck actually, ironically, sir, by the comments, and I think they are valid, sir, about the issue on people, children or students in their first elections during GCSE time and things like that. And if June makes that easier, sir, I think that is also an improvement. Equally, sir, yes, I take the point that it is an extension of the term of office. It is 4 weeks. It is a year before that has taken place. And I think it also, for all the points that have been mentioned previously, sir, COVID has had a huge impact on the work of this assembly, sir, let alone of the government. And by way of example, sir, I believe Guernsey, albeit they were in the middle of the pandemic, we are not out of the pandemic yet. Guernsey delayed their elections by a year. We're talking 4 weeks here, sir. Logistically, there will be issues next year in 2022 relative to 2018. Those issues exist anyway, sir, and frankly, 4 weeks isn't going to make too much of a difference. So for all those reasons, sir, I will not be supporting this amendment, sir. I will be supporting PPC on this. I think they have thought it through, and this is an attempt to fine-tune and learn from the problems that we all encountered in Liberation Day of 2018. And I think particularly in the 77th anniversary next year, particularly after the pandemic, it is particularly relevant to move the election day so that we can, for example, it's not the only reasons, as we've heard, but so that we can actually celebrate Liberation 77 together with all of our islanders. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Minister. Does any other member wish to speak on this amendment? No other member wishes to speak. Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. It often appears there's a delay while you're saying, is anyone going to speak? And I was keen to come in at that point. However, I did actually indicate it's the system being slow. I did indicate before you actually said. Anyway, so what I would like to just say first, I very much agree with the Chief Minister on this. There are issues that, well, sorry, let me go back. I can understand some of the arguments that be made by both sides. Okay, on this particular one, yes, we talk about principles. I've got many principles which I stand by, and I've always gone through politics as a principled politician. I don't see this, though, necessarily as a point of principle. I can see the arguments of not mixing up Liberation Day with the election. Again, like many others, I felt uncomfortable. I would also say, too, that many of the issues that are being put forward arguing against putting it forward to June, I think are wrong. We're going to see a different election this time. And I say it because we've now got two political parties, possibly a third, possibly a fourth coming forward in the next election. And those parties are going to be arguing from the point of view of a manifesto. They're going to be trying to convince the public whether they should be chosen to lead the government going forward or not. Unlike previous elections where we've all stood as independents or largely stood as independents, there are going to be political groupings who have a defined manifesto, and no doubt if they are the majority, then their members are going to constitute most of the Council of Ministers. Now, I think it's unlikely that any one party will get an overall majority, but very, very quickly there's going to be negotiations going on between those parties to see if they can work with each other to form a government. And between them, they will be sorting out who the Council of Ministers are going to be and the policies that they can agree on. And so there shouldn't be the delays that we've had in the past, while we have to appoint a Council of Ministers and then they've got to come up with a government plan, and then we have to move forward with the budget that goes with it and so on. Things should be much quicker. Now, whether the island will embrace party politics this time, I suspect they will. And I think that there is disillusionment with government generally. The public is sick to death of a lot of us. And there will be new people coming forward. There'll be new parties coming forward. And I think that for us to sort of just hang on and say, oh, it's going to cause delay to scrutiny, it's going to cause delay to government and so on, I don't think is the case. I think we'll be quicker off the starting blocks this time. Anyway, I'll leave it at that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Carnotopoulos and Brillard.
Thank you, sir. Just briefly, I would make the point, I have difficulty in understanding why PPC wished to diverge the election from Liberation Day. Liberation Day, sir, is a Jersey day. The election day, sir, is a Jersey day. I can see nothing but advantage in having the overlap. In truth, member states members will be out and about, and I think the major consideration is that the public will be out and about, and I can see nothing but advantage. I can see numbers potentially being increased for the election, so why not do it? And I think I would back that up, sir, by appreciating what others the members have said with regard to either May or June, and say that my feeling, having experienced both autumn and spring elections, is actually that the spring elections haven't made any difference at all. And in fact, I think the numbers have been less than before. So I would ask the PPC, once 22 is out of the way, really to consider going back to an autumn election. Thank you, sir.
Well, does any other member wish to speak on this proposition? This amendment, I should say. No other member wishes to speak on this amendment. Then I close the debate and call upon Senator Gorst to respond.
Thank you, sir. It's been an interesting debate. Of course, we haven't completely focused on the election day. We've had some interesting interventions about what the next election might be like. This debate, we've had some interesting interventions around how parties behave and how they might influence the election and what might happen after the election. And Deputy Higgins just commented on that. If that is what he thinks is going to happen, so then the law needs to be changed around the delivery of the strategic plan or strategic objectives. So if that is what PPC are hoping for, then they will need to come back and change that item as well. So I have, I'm afraid, not heard any good argument why the democratic principle of set parliamentary terms should be breached in the way that PPC are suggesting. I've heard lots of administrative arguments about why it doesn't really matter, or it's not really properly a matter of principle, or it's not really a breach because of this, that and the other. Let's be clear. Unamended, this piece of legislation extends the life of this Parliament by 1 month. And rather than dealing with the difficult issue of state members being on parade on Liberation Day, it actually creates Liberation Day as a platform for all states members that want to stand in the future election, because it quite clearly shows that the day after the elections will be starting. But so we already know that electioneering has started now. So I'm afraid that for my mind, that simple administrative problem is worsened, not improved. Nor am I sure, sir, that moving it to June means that all youngsters and young people facing, I was going to say facing elections, God willing, there'll be more young people standing for election. But facing exams will be able to vote, because we know that exams can continue on into and through June for some. And nor, sir, do I think that Easter is the problem that some have suggested, and that, of course, is because of Deputy Masson's P88, where the states can't sit a month before a week before nomination night, and government can't bring forward legislation and propositions for a couple of months before that. And so Easter won't be a problem in the way that some have tried to indicate that it would. So for me, Deputy Morell summed up the issue perfectly. He gave an excellent speech. He was absolutely right. No argument has been made for the breaching of the democratic principle that governments, parliaments, unless in a crisis, should extend their term of office. And therefore, sir, I make the amendment and call for the appel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Sir,
I wonder,
sir, if I may, and in the absence of my colleague, Deputy Tadier, is God willing parliamentary language, sir?
in fact, you're quite right. It's not normal parliamentary language, and it shouldn't normally, generally speaking, be used in the Assembly. You're quite right for bringing that to my attention, that ruling formally.
Sir, I'm very surprised to hear your ruling in that regard. If that is the case, that you consider that term to be unparliamentary, then of course I withdraw it.
Thank you very much, Senator. Very well. Ask the greffier to place a link in the voting box. Open the voting. And ask members to vote in the normal way. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the greffier to close the voting. And the amendment has been defeated. 16 votes pour, 25 votes contre, 1 abstention, and 1 in the link, and a vote pour and contre in the chat. Very well. Deputy Alves, do you propose Article 4 in its unamended form? So I beg your pardon, you've already proposed that. We continue with the debate on Article 4 in its unamended form. Does any member wish to speak on Article 4? No member wishes to speak on Article 4, then I close the debate and ask the greffier to put a link into the voting, into the chat. I open the voting and ask members to vote in the normal way. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the Greffier to close the voting. Article 4 has been adopted. 32 votes pour, 6 votes contre, no abstention in the link, and 1 vote contre registered in the chat. Deputy Elves, it's possible for you to take 5 and 6 en bloc if you wish, or you can take them individually. Which would you prefer?
I'd like to take them en bloc, please, sir.
Certainly.
Thank you, sir. So Article 5 amends Article 1 of the Conotarbs Jersey Law 2008 to provide that the term of office as a Conotarb begins with the day on which the person elected takes the oath of that office. Article 6 substitutes Article 2 of the 2008 law. The new article provides that the next ordinary election for Conotarbs will take place on the 22nd of June 2022, and that subsequent ordinary elections will take place every 4 years. The new Article 2.3 provides that the states may, by Act, appoint the date in an election year on which the election is to be held. I propose the articles.
Articles 5 and 6 are seconded. Does any member wish to speak on Articles 5 and 6? No member wishes to speak on Articles 5 and 6. Then the debate is closed, and I ask the Greffier to put a vote into the link. I open the voting and ask members to vote. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the Greffier to close the voting. And Articles 5 and 6 have been adopted. 35 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstentions in the link, and 1 further vote noted pour in the chat. Article
3, sir. Sorry.
Indeed. Yes, you can have the 3.
Three members have voted. 3 members have voted contra, the constables of St Lawrence and Grouville, and Senator Ferguson.
Very well. Article 7 has, by reason of the amendments accepted, fallen away, and we now would normally come on to Article 8, but there is, I think, the third amendment to be dealt with first. So I ask the Greffier to read the third amendment.
Page 17, Article 7, at the beginning of Part 4, insert 8, Article 18, Council Ministers of the States of Jersey Law 2005 amended. 1. In Article 18.2e of the States of Jersey Law 2005, within 4 months of their appointment under Article 19.7 is deleted. 2. After Article 18.2 of the States of Jersey Law 2005, there is inserted 2a. The Council of Ministers must lodge the statement of their common strategic policy under paragraph 2e. A. No later than the day on which the first government plan is lodged, and B. Within 4 months of their appointment under Article 19.7. 2B, in paragraph 2A, first government plan means the first government plan as defined in the Public Finances Jersey Law 2019, prepared by the Council of Ministers after their appointment under Article 19(7, and renumber the subsequent articles accordingly.
Deputy Alves.
Hi. Thank you, sir. PPC's Amendment 3 addresses an unforeseen impact of P17, which, if adopted unamended, would reduce the period of time available in 2022 for the next Council of Ministers to develop, agree and lodge the Comic Strategic Policy 2022 to 2026 and the Government Plan 2023 to 2026 from 15 weeks to 10 weeks. This would present a significant challenge for an incoming Council of Ministers. While there is no perfect solution, this amendment, together with an amendment to standing orders, which my committee will lodge separately, seeks to mitigate so far as is possible the time lost to the incoming Council of Ministers as a result of the proposed change in election day. This amendment would align the lodging of the Comic Strategic Policy and Government Plan by requiring that the Comic Strategic Policy must be lodged no later than the day on which the first Government Plan is lodged by an incoming Council of Ministers. This alignment would ensure that the incoming Council of Ministers' visions and priorities as set out in the Comic Strategic Policy have been expressed before or at the same time as their plan for implementing it as set out in the Government Plan. The existing requirement that the Comic Strategic Policy must be lodged in any case within 4 months of the appointment of the Council of Ministers is retained in order to future-proof the States of Jersey Law 2005, giving flexibility to the States Assembly when setting future election dates by ensuring that the Comic Strategic Policy is lodged early in its term of office. The effect of the amendment would be that the next Council of Ministers must lodge its Comic Strategic Policy at the same time or before its first Government Plan, or within 4 months of being appointed to office, whichever is earliest. I maintain the amendment.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Is the amendment seconded? Does any member wish to speak on this amendment? If no member wishes to speak on this amendment, debate is closed, and I ask the greffier to put a vote into the link. Open the voting. If members have the opportunity of casting votes, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The amendment has been adopted. 37 votes pour, 2 votes contre, and no abstentions. Well, Deputy Alves, those deals with all of the amendments. So do you wish to propose the remaining articles and schedules?
Yes, please, sir. Can I propose the rest en bloc, please?
Indeed.
Okay, so Article 8 introduces Schedule 2, which makes minor and consequential amendments. It also includes a power for the states to make further consequential, incidental, supplementary or transitional provision by regulation. Article 9 specifies the title of the law and makes provision about commencement. Article 9.2 lists the provisions that will come into force on the 22nd of June 2020, the day fixed by law for the next ordinary election. Article 9.3 lists the provisions that will come into force on the 22nd of December 2021, after which the existing legislation will not allow for a vacancy in the office of senator or deputy to be filled by a by-election. Article 9.4 provides that the other provisions of the law will come into force 7 days after the law is registered. Schedule 1 contains the replacement of Schedule 1 to the 2005 law, specifying the deputies' constituencies, and Schedule 2 makes minor and consequential amendments to the Public Elections Jersey Law 2002, the 2005 law, the 2008 law, and other legislation. The amendments to the 2002 law include inserting a new definition of electoral district so as to preserve the current electoral districts within the parishes of St Saviour and St Brellards, and provide for each parish with a multi-parish constituency to continue to be a separate electoral district for the purposes of that law. Amendments made by Schedule 2 remove references to senators and make other changes that are consequential on parts 1 to 3 of the law, as well as making other related minor changes to the electoral legislation. They also provide for the removal of spent transitional provisions from the 2005 and the 2008 law. So I propose the rest of the articles and schedule. Thank you, sir.
Are the articles and schedules seconded? Conatapis and Brillard.
Thank you, sir. Could I ask the Deputy just to elaborate a bit further on 8.2, which refers to consequential, incidental, supplementary or transitional provisions, and as to what, in her view, those might end up being? Thank you, sir.
Does any other member wish to speak? No other member wishes to speak? Then I close the debate and call upon the Deputy Alves to respond.
Thank you, sir. It's the wording that is standing wording, so there are none that are envisioned at the moment. It's just in there in case something came up, so there would be a power under the law to sort that out. I hope that clarifies things, sir, and I call for the appel. Thank you.
That is called for. I invite the greffier to ask the greffier to put a link into the chat. And I open the voting and ask members to vote in the usual way. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Ask the greffier to close the voting. The articles and schedules have been adopted. 33 votes pour, 6 votes contre, no abstentions in the link, and a further vote pour noted in the chat. Do you move the draft law in third reading, Chair of PPC?
Yes, please, sir. So it's been a very long debate, and I want to thank everyone for their participation. There's been much made of the amount of time we've spent as an assembly over the last 2 decades discussing this. And whilst we have been critical of some of the false starts there have been over the years, I do think it's important that we have dedicated time to this issue, because it is so vital to address what is wrong with our current system. After all, we owe it to the people of Jersey who elect us. We've known for a long time that our system is flawed. We've been told that by Clothier 20 years ago, and most recently by the EOM. But really, we have known that all along without needing to be told. We only have to look at our low voter turnouts numbers and the number of members elected unopposed to know that this is not what a robust system looks like. We've debated countless versions over the years and seen this in so apologies. We've debated countless versions over the years and seen there is no such thing as a perfect plan. We have arrived at a compromise position, and I'm very grateful to those members who have been willing to place their faith in the committee's proposals. I do believe that we are making positive changes for our island and for the people we represent. So I thank the members, and I propose in third reading. Thank you, sir.
Is the law seconded for third reading? Yes, sir. Does any member wish to speak in third reading? Deputy Martin.
Yes, so I will be brief, but I would like to really thank Deputy Alves for persevering and being a new chair of PPC. I know she's been on PPC and I know she's worked with PPC, but it's a massive change today that she's just pointed out. I've waited over 20 years. It was my very, very first big piece of a big report I read, which was the Clothier report. I took it on holiday with me, sir, and I did have a holiday, Deputy Morell, yes. And I took it and read it. And I just thank her for presenting it, and it makes sense. And I really hope in the third reading, members who had their doubts will absolutely get behind PPC's proposal. And just as I know the deputy is pretty modest as well, sir, but it is Deputy Alves. It's been pronounced a few different ways in this assembly, and the deputy's been here 3 years now. It's Deputy Alves. Well done, thank you.
Senator Ferguson.
Sir, I appreciate the amount of work that has been gone into by PPC, and obviously time alone will tell about the efficiency and efficacy of the new arrangements. Frankly, I found the committee system compared to what we have today was much more efficient, and I have to take my hat off to Guernsey. I don't like doing it often, but I do occasionally, who have managed to keep the best of the old system with a new system. So they have ministers and they have committees. I suppose these actually, the committees are effectively individual departmental scrutiny panels, which is what our committees used to be. I don't know, time alone will tell, and I hate to be the death's head at the feast, but I appreciate the work that's gone into it, but I'm doubtful. Anyway, thank you, sir.
Very much. Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. And it's with absolutely great pleasure I congratulate Deputy Alves for bringing this piece of work to the States. I think it represents a new start, and I'm looking forward under this new way of doing things to a revivification, total revival in our democratic system. And I hope we see that reflected in turnout and in people's opinions in the years to come. I think it's got the basis for covering us for the years to come. I think it will be a vibrant, healthy democracy. And after 20 years in the States, I'm relieved to see it happen.
Thank you, Deputy Young.
So yes, again, to add my voice to the congratulations and the praise for Deputy Alves, you know, a new, not long elected member to take on this major job and to deal with all the complexities of law and so on, and to pilot through what is probably the most progressive and major reform that's happened for decades. And of course, I think if we hopefully we'll go ahead and give this as third reading and enact this into law. And I shall certainly reminded when I look back when I was a member before in.
You appear to have frozen, Deputy. We've lost you. Can we see if we can get Deputy Young back?
We won't go into that anymore, but I think this now puts it right. It sets the states on a route to be able to improve public confidence in our government, to enable, make it easier for new members to come into the states, for fresh blood, and obviously we've got it's a real difficult matter to produce the machinery of that within the rules of our laws to make that happen. So well done. I do share some of the views from Senator Ferguson there. I don't think members will be surprised at that. I think we have made our government incredibly complicated with such things as the government plan and the common strategic purposes and all these procedures that we've had to go through. But in the end of the day, I'm hopeful that with this, the framework, and maybe I'd like to see personally, if we get a strengthening of political parties, there will be much clearer set of mandates that the people will have, well contested elections, and we will have really good hushed-ins with lots of probing questions. And I think it is a really, really important day, sir. So very much put my name to support these reforms. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. And I just wanted to put forward the view on this with regards to diverse candidates coming forward, because I believe that if we do pass this today, it will be one of the most important things that this Assembly will do or has done to encourage diverse candidates to come forward. And I think if we do approve this today, we'll be removing several barriers to participation. And I hope that this will be passed today. And I hope that if and when it is passed, that women and other underrepresented groups in our island will look at this and see it as a positive thing, and that they will consider putting themselves forward for election, so that we can see a real diverse range of high quality candidates for the electorate to choose from at the next election. And really, I'm quite excited to look at this today, and I'm quite excited that I hope that this is going to be passed today. And I think even those who may have had amendments lodged and not had those amendments passed, I would hope that they could see a way to approve this today, so that we can show in great numbers that this is something that is a compromise that has been reached by us today as a collective, and that we want to encourage candidates from all backgrounds to come forward and take part in our democracy. And I want to echo the thanks to Deputy Alves and of course Deputy Russell Labby for their work that they've done on this.
Thank you, Deputy. Connie Arbison Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. And members may have noticed that I've voted consistently against the proposition today and yesterday, sir. My compromise was in 2013 when I voted for option B in the referendum, subsequently supporting that in the votes. There are still members of the Assembly today who chose to ignore the will of the electorate then. Had they voted to support the will of the electorate, we would have had 7 years of change, and we would have had the support, I think, of the electorate, because we would have supported them at that time. I haven't supported the removal of the senators from the States Assembly, and for all the reasons rehearsed over the many years since I've been a member of the Assembly, so from about 2000 and what was that, 5, the debates I've taken part in, where I've always spoken in favour of the retention of the senators and the island-wide mandate. And so I think I have to conclude, sir, by saying that it will come as no surprise to members that I will not be supporting this legislation in third reading. And to conclude, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Conor Tarr, does any other member wish to speak in third reading? Another member wishes to speak in third reading? Senator Farnham.
Thank you, sir. And I think whilst it's been a disappointing debate for a number of members, specifically those who wanted to retain the island-wide mandate, I would still like to offer my congratulations to the chair of PPC and those who have, in a democratic way, won the day, sir. To the victor of the spoils, well, we shall see, because I know we are all going to work hard to make sure we have a very healthy and robust election process. I think the Assembly has made a mistake. I think the loss of the island-wide mandate is not right, but we shall see. I suspect it could become an election issue, if not next time, in the future. And just because it's gone now, sir, I wouldn't say that it might not come back in the future. But as they say, sir, if life gives you a lemon, make lemonade. We shall do our best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator. Conor Tarr, St Helier.
Thank you, sir. And I too want to endorse the congratulations members have given to the chair of PPC. Having tried to bring a reform proposal myself as chair of PPC following the referendum, I'm almost envious that she has managed to get this hopefully across the line. So if I had £1 for every time the word democracy has been used in this debate, I would be a rich man. And I just wanted to remind members that the whole point of this debate was to try to deal with the fact that people in Jersey have a different power at the ballot box depending on where they live. And that was the most important thing we needed to correct. But we're not, of course, out of the woods yet. If you look at the basic principle that votes should be based on population, then given the size of the population of St Helier, we should have 16 votes in the new Assembly. In fact, we will have 14. So St Helier will go into the next election still underrepresented quite significantly. And that underrepresentation will only continue as St Helier continues to take the majority of new housing units that are planned for the island. So that's why I welcome the fact that there will be an electoral commission that will bring back to the Assembly the fact that you cannot have a situation where people have a different power at the ballot box depending on where they live. The senatorial matter didn't actually affect representation. It affected the number of people one can vote for, but that's not the same thing as looking at the overall representation of people in the Assembly. But I welcome these changes. I hope that members will get behind them, including members who have reservations, because it would be great if we can say of our Parliament that it is not gerrymandered, but it gives everybody in the island equal say in parliamentary matters. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Conrad. Does any other member wish to speak on the law in third reading? No other member wishes to speak in third reading? Then I close the debate and call upon Deputy Alves to respond.
Thank you, sir. And I'd just like to thank all members for their final contributions and their kind words to me. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I just wanted to pick up on one thing that Senator Ferguson said, which I completely respect her views regarding the committee system. And I think Deputy Young also raised some concerns about ministerial government, and I would encourage them and any other members actually to speak to the Vice Chair of PPC, Senator Farwa, who's currently undertaking a body of work that's looking into the democratic and accountability governance, and that's as part of a subgroup. So I'd just like to take this final opportunity also to thank the Deputy Greffier and Jennifer Cartwright, the legislative drafter, for all their help and support also with this body of work. And so, members, as I said at the very beginning of this debate, I urge you to maintain your resolve and stand by your decision that you made just 4 months ago. Let's move forward. Thank you, sir.
Well, I ask the greffier to place a vote in the link. And I open the voting and ask members to vote.
It's got 42 in the link.
Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. I ask the greffier to close the voting. The law has been adopted in third reading. 30 votes pour, 12 votes contre, no abstentions in the link, and 1 further vote pour in the chat.
So do we have all of the names, please?
Yes.
So those who voted pour were Deputy Labby, Deputy Ward, Deputy IA, Deputy Gardner, Constable St Clement, Deputy Lewis, Senator Mezek, Constable St John, Deputy Young, Senator Pallett, Deputy Alves, Constable St Helier, Senator Valois, Deputy Morel, Constable of St Peter, Deputy of St Warren, Deputy of St Martin, Deputy Dublé, Deputy Truscott, Deputy Pinnell, Senator Moore, Deputy Lehegra, Deputy Higgins, Deputy Martin, Deputy Southern, Deputy Ash, Constable of St Warren, Constable of St Martin, the Deputy of St John, Deputy Pamplin, and in the link it was the Deputy of St Mary. And those who voted contra were the Constable of Grouville, Deputy of St Peter, Deputy Giza, Senator Ferguson, Senator Farnham, Senator Gorst, Constable of St Lawrence, Deputy of Grouville, Constable of St Brelard, Senator Lafondre, Constable of Trinity, and the Deputy of Trinity.
Very well. The next item is Le Kennevet Park Flats Loan Scheme P19. Sorry? Oh yes, I'm sorry. We agreed to do safer travel, I think, as the next item. The Assembly resolved that yesterday. I apologise.
Do you want me to say something now, or are you going?
No, it's all right. I shall. So it's P34. The next item is adjustment of green travel and regional categorisation ahead of reintroduction of Safer Travel Policy P34, lodged by the Safer Travel Guidelines Review Panel. For the purpose of the debate, the main respondent will be the Chief Minister, and I ask the greffier to read the proposition.
States has to decide whether of opinion to request the Council of Ministers, prior to the reintroduction of the Safer Travel Policy on 26 April 2021, to A, change the categorisation of green travel areas to below 25 cases per 100,000 and change the categorisation of amber travel areas to 25 to 120 per 100,000 from their current levels of 50 per 100,000 and 50 to 120 per 100,000 respectively, to be monitored and adjusted using the most recent 14-day period of official transmission rates data which is available. B, use the upper tier local authority level, counties, metropolitan districts, inner and outer London and unitary authorities for categorisation of the United Kingdom's RAG, red, amber and green regions as the basis for the regional approach adopted in the Safer Travel Policy. And C, ensure that scrutiny and states members are briefed ahead of any changes to the Safer Travel Policy.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. And so I speak on behalf of the Safer Travel Guidelines Scrutiny Panel. First of all, sir, I'd like to thank the Assembly for allowing a reduced lodging period for this amendment to travel guidelines. And I look forward to a genuine debate over this topic. Indeed, the first reason for this amendment is to bring this decision over how we determine our travel classification to the Assembly. I say this because the panel is asking to return to a classification that existed in July and had success in limiting inward-bound infection rates, even at a time before widespread vaccination. So this was a government decision to change those classifications, and we are here to scrutinise government, and therefore we bring this to the Assembly for those particular reasons. We are asking for the Assembly to be prudent and to take measures now which could reduce any likelihood of inbound travel, again causing a receding of the virus and potential rapid rise in cases as experienced late last year. The re-establishment of previous classification levels for green, amber and red, which stays the same actually, is a small but significant step to do exactly this. It is not about closing borders. It is not about stopping travel. And so I repeat that. This is not about closing the borders, and it is not about stopping travel. Jersey is at a vital stage in the response to this pandemic. We exist in a wider world and as an island rely upon travel to and from Jersey for so many areas of our lives. But this does not mean we should lack caution in dealing with any possible threat. The countries that surround us are also at key stages of the pandemic, with rises in some areas and relaxation of rules of others, plus the unknown variable of mutations to the COVID virus that will mean new strains with different mechanisms for infection, reproduction and their effects. The panel also feels that the safer regional categorisation to use in determining the RAG status for the UK would be the upper tier local authority. That's counties, metropolitan districts, inner and outer London and unitary authorities, rather than the lower tier or council areas. This provides a better level of protection given the likelihood of movement of potentially COVID-19 positive individuals between smaller regional areas following the relaxation of movement restrictions in the UK, where the stay-at-home order has now been removed. So I remind the Assembly that the opening of borders is happening at the same time as others restrictions are being lifted. We must address how we calibrate the risk of all of these changes to make the whole. I'll keep this opening speech very brief as others will want to express their thoughts, and we've had a lot of long speeches in the last few days. I also hope that members have read the accompanying report. So I look forward to the debate and ask members to consider all arguments carefully before they vote on a possible change to our travel guidelines. And please be constructive, as this debate could be a reassurance for the people of Jersey that decisions being made are open, supported and have been thought through carefully. Also so that they have the support of the Assembly. And I would say to the Minister, I would apologise in advance that we brought this to the Assembly relatively late, but with the time available to panels and the discussion that was needed, and it was through genuine discussion of this panel that this amendment arose. But we thought we cannot leave this. We cannot go without bringing this to the Assembly and having a thorough discussion. So we think that is the best way forward. And therefore, sir, I make the proposition on behalf of the panel, and I look forward to the discussion that ensues. Thank you, sir.
Deputy, is the proposition seconded?
Yes, sir.
Therefore, open the debate. Deputy St Warren.
Thank you, sir. So I believe we've all come to realise in the course of this pandemic how important our social connections are. When we are kept apart from others, we suffer. We feel unsupported, isolated, lonely. Our mental health might deteriorate. It's harder to share the burdens that we bear and receive help and support for them. Jersey is a thriving community, but we have connections that are often off-island. We've recently completed our census forms, and I believe that when the results come back, it will show, as I think it did in the last census, that more than half our residents were born outside of the island. Nothing wrong with that at all. What it means is that many of us have connections to family outside of the island and communities that they have lived in prior to their arrival in the island. And that's a valuable asset to Jersey. That is valuable and benefits individuals, but I've no doubt that it also adds to the diversity of our community. And last summer, we believe that most of the travel into the island was in fact from returning island residents who had gone either on holiday, because we all do need holidays, and sometimes that holiday is spent with wider family, or they had gone very explicitly to visit family or friends or communities they know in the UK. And then of course they have to travel through our ports. And I think that's an important thing to remember, because sometimes people get in touch with me and the way they speak of our travel policy is that we are letting in vast hordes of outsiders who are simply coming here to contaminate the island. And that's and it's an extreme view and is quite untrue. In addition, of course, to local travel, members of our community will invite their friends and family who live abroad to come and stay with them here. Again, it's all about their reconnection and support. But we also welcome tourists to visit our beautiful island, and that's one of the mainstays of our economy, together with the business travellers that we also welcome. So whilst we're an island, we're not insular. We have a network of connections, and our connectivity is highly important. But we can connect safely, and we've shown we can do that. Our test, trace and isolate teams have performed excellently at the borders, and I pay tribute to the hard work of those teams in setting up new systems and maintaining safe access to our island through the borders. We went through the second wave in November, December, and we turned all travel into the island to red, meaning that there was a mandatory isolation period of 10 days at least. And so far, it appears that we have prevented seeding of infection through the borders. And as infection levels decrease here and in the UK, I believe, and ministers believe, on the advice of STAC and policy officers, that it is safe to reconnect with the UK, Guernsey and the Isle of Man in a safe way, and that it is right that we now do so. sir, on the 19th of March, following that advice from STAC and officers, we, as the government, announced that the travel elements of the reconnection roadmap, the regional classifications, would come into force from the 26th of April. That's Monday, of course. And prior to that public announcement, we had briefed the scrutiny panels and states members also. And that timing was made 5 weeks or so in advance, so that islanders and other prospective passengers had adequate notice of our intentions, subject always, of course, to infection rates decreasing. And islanders have been able to plan accordingly. This proposition was brought, I think, last Friday, and we are debating it today, just, 4 days before the proposed date for the change. That gives travellers a very short notice period. It contradicts the settled and clear position that was set out on the 19th of March, on which many travel plans will have been made, principally by islanders to visit family members in the UK, I believe. And the impact of making a sudden change is likely to be highly significant. We're told that an average of 125 passengers each day have already booked their travel from Jersey to the UK in the 3 weeks following Monday. The majority of those will be visiting green regions of the UK and therefore expecting to return to isolate only until their first negative test is received. And based on regional classifications on the 20th of April, 152 UK regions would change from green to amber if the threshold was to be moved to 25 per 100,000 over 14 days. That 152 UK regions is 62% of the total of the green regions as at the 20th of April. So if this proposition were to be adopted, we can be sure that many islanders with travel bookings over this 3-week period would be adversely affected. Many hundreds would face a difficult choice whether to cancel their bookings or undergo isolation for which they've made no preparation as yet. And I believe that will just lead to confusion, distress, and anger in our community over this action because of the uncertainty and the change of arrangements at the last minute, which don't appear to be related to any imminent threat concerning the spread of infection. It breaks trust, I believe, in all of us. So there would be little regard as to whether this is a government initiative or a scrutiny move. It breaks trust in the sense of a planned reconnection and emergence from this COVID pandemic in a stable way. We can do better and place the island, the well-being of islanders ahead of our politics. I was surprised and disappointed to receive the proposition last Friday circulated in the usual way. I would have hoped that if the panel had any concerns, they could have raised them with me, the Chief Minister, or the Public Health team prior to lodging. We would always have met if there was a matter of great urgency on which the panel wanted immediate advice. We could have together pored over the science, discussed the pros and cons, but clearly that didn't happen. Straight in at the last minute came P34, seemingly without any scientific or evidential basis. And it appears to me stranger still, I'm afraid to say, that I am holding a public hearing, sorry, the panel is holding a public hearing with me tomorrow on safer travel policy, assuming that the Assembly isn't sitting. That's been arranged for some time. And in the usual way, in advance, the panel had written to my office, putting some questions indicating the areas they wished to cover. And on the 14th of April, the panel wrote to say, prior to our hearing scheduled for Friday, the 23rd of April 2021, the panel thought it would be useful to write to you to seek information which will help direct our discussion next week to provide the most effective level of scrutiny and benefit for the public. As such, we would be appreciative if the following queries could be answered. And one of the queries, sir, is as follows. What measures will be used to dictate isolation requirements, and what will these be? How will red, amber, green ratings be allocated? It's a perfectly reasonable question, and we've sent back an answer early this week. And that's fine. That's what we will be talking about in our public hearing if it goes ahead tomorrow, and that's proper scrutiny. Why we would be adopting the red, amber, green, what's the basis for that decision. The panel would hear from the medical officer of health or policy officers. It would consider, it would report, and it may wish to make findings and recommendations. But by lodging P34, it seems to me, what's the point of our hearing? Because the panel has made up its mind. What's the point of trying to scrutinise this issue if the panel says straight away, before they've taken any evidence, no, that what is proposed should not happen. Instead, what the panel has concluded should be how this matter is governed. And I just don't understand how the panel can come to that sort of view and say we must adopt what it now wants before it's taken any evidence, before it's had its public hearing, and why it didn't ask and deal with this as a matter of urgency immediately following the announcement on the 19th of March. And so it's not that the move to 25 per 100,000 would create a great difference in the risk. For seeding to occur, by seeding we mean somebody or the virus evading the positive test and being unisolated going into the community and spreading infection. So for seeding to incur, a passenger from a green region would need to be infected on arrival, and the virus would need to evade surveillance by its day 0 test and transmit from that person to other islanders in such a way that the infection spreads. Now, the impact of the changes, if it was adopted, bearing in mind we have a very low threshold already, is very slight. So for every 1,000 passengers arriving from a green region, it is estimated the marginal decrease in the number of COVID positive passengers where a level of 25 is adopted in place of 50 would be in the range of 0 to 0.6 of a passenger, or less than a single passenger per 1,000 passengers. And of course, in addition, that less than one passenger will nevertheless be identified by arrivals testing and may well prove positive and therefore not go on to seed. So the benefit of the proposed change is very marginal. And current arrivals to Jersey are of about 1,000 persons each week. And the information government is receiving is that that is very unlikely to change, given that the carriers have not made decisions to put on significant amount of extra flights, and it takes about 2 months at least for carriers to work up a different schedule. So the anticipation is that for some weeks to come, it'll still be around 1,000 passengers arriving each week through our ports. So as I said before, STAC have advised government on this, and whilst the report to the proposition references individual STAC members' contributions.
Deputy Swan, that's your 15 minutes, I'm afraid.
Thank you, sir. Am I not a responder?
The main responder was the Chief Minister, I'm afraid.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Then I'm sure the Chief Minister is well able to. It's just that I had lodged the comments, and I thought therefore that I might have been a main responder, and I didn't check that point before. So I apologise.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But I am confident, sir, that the Chief Minister and others will be able to take up the different points. Thank you, sir.
Well, point of clarification, Deputy Ward.
It's a genuine point of clarification. I'm not trying to catch anyone out. I really want this to be a positive debate. The Minister mentioned around 1,000 arrivals in the next few weeks. Is he talking about, and it's a very important clarification, I believe, sir, is that 1,000 per day or is that 1,000 per week? Because the data we have that we requested, although I've got to say the graph isn't particularly useful because it's not labelled, but that's just, anyway, the numbers are significantly higher than that as we move on. And I just want to be clear, and when we're talking about numbers today, because so I believe those numbers will come up a lot from right at the beginning of the debate of what numbers we're talking about in terms of arrivals. So thank you, sir. I hope that is a point of clarification.
It is, yes.
Well, so I think that's the difficulty of having this debate at the last minute without some information having been sought beforehand. But my understanding from information received from ports of Jersey, passed through public health officials, is that the estimate is about 1,000 passengers per week will be travelling to the island. But of course that does depend on how fast carriers might respond and put on extra flights, but there's always a time lag in that. Thank you, sir.
Right. Well, Colin Tarbison,
Sorry,
I beg your pardon.
I'm afraid I have further clarification, if I may.
If something that
it's exactly on this point.
Yes.
It's just data that we've received as suggesting that in June and July, arrivals could be as high as 60,000. I suppose that's per month. That's one of the issues we have. There's no data. The data is not clear.
Well, if you're simply putting contrary information, then that's really
I'm just asking.
If you're asking for clarification.
Yeah, the timeline of those 1,000 per week arrivals, is that consistently through the summer, or will they increase? And what will that happen? Be? Sorry, so yes,
no,
that helps clarify the question.
That's entirely a point of clarification. Are you able to assist with that, Minister?
I can say so. It's not consistently for the whole summer. It's the immediate short term.
Very well. Thank you very much. Deputy Young, you have a point of clarification as well, and that's of what the Deputy of St. Juan has said, is it?
Yeah, yes, please. It is. I apologise. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to have a briefing on this at all before. The Minister spoke of the arrangements for the UK, Guernsey, and the Isle of Man for 3 weeks. Could he, and the 1,000 a week, could he say whether that is under the current travel arrangements? Was he referring to travellers from the common travel area only, or would that include people of international travel who have transited through the UK? Sir, could he clarify that?
Well, sir, our borders are not closed to anyone. So it might include people who have transited through the UK, as it has done throughout. But if anyone has spent time in amber or red areas and all other parts of the world apart from The UK, Guernsey and the Isle of Man will until June be classified as red. So if in the previous 14 days they have spent any time in red areas, they will be required to isolate for 10 days. And so we can also note that the UK is imposing mandatory isolation on a number of countries exceeding 40. So any of those coming from those countries transiting through the UK will have spent a period of mandatory isolation in hotels in the UK prior to onward travel to Jersey. I hope that helps, sir.
Very well. It does, thank you.
Conor Tarbison-1.
Thank you, sir. And I'm pleased to follow my deputy. I think we're all suffering from COVID fatigue, but this, and I'm grateful to the panel for bringing this forward, because it's always vital and important to debate these matters so that the issues are aired. And I have to say, the one thing we've learned about COVID is that what's true today is probably out of date tomorrow, especially if you're traveling. But I think in the time that we've been fighting this virus, we have learned some fundamental facts. Firstly, track and trace is absolutely vital. And we learned this last summer when our border was open. And we have a great team doing this, and they've had lots of practice now. And I think our track and trace system is amongst the best, certainly in the Western Hemisphere, but probably in the world. We've also got extremely good at testing. We probably have the best testing facilities of any jurisdiction. As one who's used it, I know how quick and slick it is and how fast you get the answers in. And we also now have the benefit of lateral flow testing. As one who tried to travel last summer, I know that our country classification is extremely dynamic, and areas that suddenly become of risk do very quickly move from amber and sometimes to red, and also go back to green when the situation changes. And we do update it extremely quickly, and I think we should place a great deal of faith in that ability. And another thing that's changed substantially since even last December, which we referred to in the proposition, is our vaccination figures. And it's worth just looking at the numbers. And these numbers, I think, are about a week old now. So far, we've administered 73,426 doses of vaccine, 447,673 a first dose, 25,753 a second dose. So the doses per 100 people in our population is now 68.1. Which is an incredible achievement. 29% of all islanders aged 18 years are fully vaccinated. 90% of 80 plus are fully vaccinated. 90% of our care home residents are fully vaccinated. 85% of care home staff are fully vaccinated. 74% of our frontline health workers are now fully vaccinated. 84% of clinically vulnerable high-risk people between 16 and 69 have received a first dose. And 78% of clinically at risk, moderate risk, have received a first dose. And the reason for quoting these statistics is just to illustrate that we are in a much better place now than when we opened up last spring, with over half our population protected. And in short, most of the vulnerable end of our community are now protected. And also, the country that we're proposing to open up to, the UK, has made similar progress with their vaccination and continues to make good progress. I watch with amazement the numbers of people in the course of a day in the UK receive the vaccination. It's an incredible achievement. And if you see what's happening in other countries in the world, the UK is well ahead of that. The only country to match it now is the US. The report in the proposition refers to the new Kent variant that hit us last year, and when the winter was coming on. And yes, it did have produce another spike, and I don't think we quite realised how virulent the Kent variant was. But we're in a much better place now, and even greener arrivals have to test and have to isolate until they've tested clear, something that wasn't happening last year. And again, as with all these things, we learn as we go along, and I think we're now in a very good place. I think variants are of a concern, but what I've read so far, and I have to qualify this by saying I'm in no way a medical expert, I'm just a layman who reads the news like everyone else. But it does seem that the vaccines protect us even against the worst extremes of serious illness, even if they don't stop people getting the COVID itself. And I think, as we've seen, the pessimistic broadcasts that people have made about vaccines tend to be countered by the performance when it comes out. So vaccines do seem to perform better than we been told to start at the start. I think everyone's seen the paper that's been circulated, and what that paper says broadly supports what I'm saying. Moving to the larger areas part of the proposition, I do have concerns about this because, as we saw last time, spikes in the community tend to show up as in small areas of the community. And if we move to a larger area, in my view, that will mask some of the hotspots, and we may miss them until, frankly, it's too late. So there is a benefit in having a smaller jurisdiction, smaller areas classification, because you can spot spikes when they show up quickly. When I hear what they say about movement, but then movement's going to take place anyway. People can pick up COVID anywhere if they're moving around the UK. They can catch it at the airport, they can catch it on trains. So I don't think the movement argument is particularly valid when looking at areas. I would prefer to see us work in smaller areas so we have a better idea of where the hotspots are. So in light of the fact that we are all trying to keep our speeches good, I'll sum up. We are in a good place. We're in as good a place as the UK. Suggested number of 25 per 100 is lower than Guernsey. It is not supported by the advice that we received today. And I think at some stage in this process, we have to be a bit braver. We've all sheltered, and I think we've all got very cautious when we've been sheltering. We have a robust vaccination program, and people are being vaccinated at a rapid rate. And any of you who are old enough who've been up to the vaccine centre can testify how efficient it is and how quickly they're getting through people. We have a good testing regime, and we have a good track and trace regime. So I would strongly urge members to be comforted by our current approach and to follow the advice that we received and to reject this proposition. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Clontarf. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to.
I'm concerned, sir. I would like to speak, but my speech is longer than 7 minutes that remained.
Well, should we see if anyone else wants to speak who isn't going to speak for that length of time? Would members agree to take the adjournment sooner?
And that may be sensible, sir.
Yes, sir.
I propose the adjournment, sir.
Very much. The adjournment's proposed. Does anyone wish to argue against the adjournment? We're 10 minutes or slightly 7 or 8 minutes before normal time. No, very well. The Assembly stands adjourned until 2:50.